Hi everyone, today we're going to be doing one thing and one thing only, which is issuing an apology to the Kavernacle. Said apology has to do with the video released by Trash Discourse, Nazis Are Recruiting You Using Left-Wing Buzzwords, where upon watching that, and then watching the Kavernacle's response, I decided to write my apology. So I want to issue that apology in this video, as well as give some additional context as to why I was working with Trash, why I think they made a lot of good points in spite of ultimately directing their hostility towards someone who didn't deserve it, and what we can do going forwards. Before we get started, this is some information about me. My name is Persephone Vanderward. I have my MA in Gothic English Literature, an independent PhD in Gothic Poetics and Little Gothic BDSM, focusing partially on Metroidvania, and I am the author of the multi-volume nonprofit book series Sex Positivity, its art director, sole invigilator, illustrator, and primary editor, the other co-writer, co-editor being Bay Ryan. I'm a male to female trans woman, Tolkien and Amazon enthusiast, anti-fascist, atheist and Satanist, polypan kinkster, erotic artist, pornographer, and anarcho-communist. Originally, this blog explored my love of movies when I was cishet. Now I use it to write about the Gothic, horror, but also sex, heavy metal, and video games in a queer way. You can financially support my blog through Ko-fi or Patreon. One is safe for work and the other not safe for work, but the money for either goes towards the same art and essays I produce, which often complement each other. First, my apology, which I posted on the only Blue Sky account that I have, which is my 18 and up account. However, when posting it and tagging the Kavernacle, I censor any nude images, if any are present, and I use examples of different things that are censored in such a way to illustrate the points that I'm making. So we open up with, "Hi, the Kavernacle. I was one of the researchers Trash cited in their video. My focus was on BE, but I wanted to reach out and apologize for how you were treated. To it, I just want to say that I'm confused by the amount of flack you caught in this video. Apology in alt text and in thread." So before we read the apology, these are the images that I included. Specifically this image of Lancelot's envoy from the Holy Grail shot with an arrow, and some examples of Bad Empanada being bigoted per my research. Spend 5 seconds on this American liberal huckbox and you'll learn to appreciate the coming Trump crackdown. Go to town, Donald. Post all you want. I'm not the plural systems pup who will be going to camp. Blue Sky is where you go when you have 15 self-diagnosed mental illnesses and want to be in an echo chamber with other people who also have 15 self-diagnosed mental illnesses. Bad Empanada, you might as well call my friends and I useless eaters at this point. Of course, I legitimately think you should be in the mines. Why? I support Palestine and all areas in the global south exploited by capital. I support ending climate change, capital, the ruling class, but I also think trans women are women and people with disorders are people, furries are human, etc. These aren't mutually exclusive concepts. We desperately need to bring back forced labor, says Bad Empanada, citing my essay, specifically its opening, which reads, "This essay, Slurs on Activism, was written to critique Natalie Wynn, aka ContraPoints, for her liberal Zionism, but also ableist critics like Bad Empanada calling her narcissist, affecting myself and my friends, i.e. being trans and or mentally ill, including having various mental disorders." And last but not least, a Politico exclusive, I Love Hitler, leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chat, where I compare these to what Bad Empanada is saying, and I write, "Puritanical Aussie expat who uses Nazi rhetoric to enrich himself while punching down at minorities, e.g. disabled people, plural folk, furries, trans people, etc." So that's the opening. That's the initial context, not just of my apology, but also the research that I gave to Trash and expected them to use exclusively against Bad Empanada, or at the very least focusing on Bad Empanada. Scrolling down. The apology itself, which I wrote 13 hours ago. As someone who researches fascism and furry phobia myself, and indeed having written entire books on those subjects, I frankly was hoping Trash would focus more on Bad Empanada, i.e. the person whose dossier I compiled and sent to Trash, expecting them to actually use the information inside. I asked them to consult me based on its contents after they approached me, and they never did. They had mentioned that Bad Empanada sucks, but that you, in their words, seemed less at the epicenter of things, potentially misguided, but not really the main issue. That they have a disproportionate amount of smoke for you, not Bad Empanada, in the actual video. It was like handing them a quiver and arrows with Bad Empanada written on them, only to shoot you repeatedly with them instead. I don't really get it, honestly. Like, the argument itself was fine. It just didn't apply to you, even if the theater kid comment frankly pissed me off. And I know that things suck for GNC people, but that's no excuse to punch down at allies, hold their heads underwater even when we're drowning. I'm sorry about that, truly. Also, I didn't have a chance to respond to this yesterday. I watched it once while juggling dinner and writing an essay about something completely different, so when I woke up today and thought about it more, I was like, colonizer accent? Isn't the Kavernacle Irish? There's other things besides I could talk about. Ultimately, though, I felt like Trash took all their frustrations out on you, versus using the ammunition I gave them to use against Bad Empanada, e.g. him straight up calling queerfolk, furries, and plural people, etc. useless eaters. If anything, I'd like you to talk about his flagrant bigotry a bit more yourself, but I understand that it's hard to do that when you're being attacked, too. I would ask for understanding, as things are scary right now in America for queer people, but I don't ultimately agree with Trash taking criticisms of Bad Empanada and applying them to you. Sorry again, and solidarity, comrade. Yours, Persephone. So, that was the initial apology, which I posted not just on my Blue Sky account, but also on YouTube. On the Kavernacle's YouTube video, I posted the same apology, and in response, Bad Empanada decided to weigh in. So in this skeet to the Kavernacle, I write, also, despite the miscommunication Trash had, they're 100% correct about Bad Empanada. He's basically an incel at this point, but the one spouting fascist rhetoric as well, and punching down at me and my friends. Please look into him. In the comment section to the Kavernacle's video, I post my apology, and then Bad Empanada says, "This is my stalker. They've written like 10 unhinged blog posts about me, some of which are 100 plus pages long, which, aside from being completely insane, i.e. they accuse me of virtually raping them with my Twitter posts, also randomly have a bunch of nudes in them. Like every second paragraph, they show you their genitals. I'm not joking. In the email they say they sent out to creators about me, they also include a nude of themselves. No joke. They also awarded themselves a PhD and think that writing obsessive blog posts about YouTubers is academic research. I would love to cover the insane stuff they've written on my channel, but unfortunately it's impossible because it is literally riddled with porn for no reason, so if you show it on YouTube, you'd get banned. Keeping all of that in mind, I reply or follow up with, Bad Empanada isn't to be trusted, the Kavernacle, testifying to our own abuse, punching up, my friends and I are harassed, i.e. by him and other TERF SWERF incels doing fascism in plain sight, a witch hunt blaming the whore. Please speak out about him. And here I give different examples of Bad Empanada being fascist. You are a dangerous sex pest, so it's ultimately great for everyone else that you are unemployed and just at home all day writing embarrassing blog posts interspersed with porn of yourself for no reason that no one reads. Keeps you away from sexually assaulting people. The aforementioned post where Bad Empanada calls my friends and I useless eaters, or he agrees with me, and then says that we should be in the mines specifically. And then the aforementioned instance where Bad Empanada, after saying these things and accusing me of being a sex pest who would sexually assault people if I were in the same room with them, the TERF argument, basically, that I'm the stalker and I am harassing them. And at no point in these examples do I accuse Bad Empanada of virtually raping me. I say, you may as well call my friends and I useless eaters, and then I ask for clarification when Bad Empanada says that we should be in the mines. whereupon I say I support Palestine and all areas in the global south exploited by capital. I support ending climate change, capital, the ruling class, but I also think trans women are women and people with disorders are people, furries are human, etc. To which Bad Empanada accuses me of being a stalker, of being completely insane, of writing unhinged blog posts, accusing them of virtually raping me in their Twitter posts, having a bunch of nudes in them, even though all of those are censored. It's called a fig leaf. So if you have an artistic nude and said nude is censored, it's not nude, it's censored. So on and so forth. I'm very clear about the independent status of my PhD, and despite the fact that I have posts on my blog and on my website, those are still academic research. They're written in an academic way. It's meant to educate people, to reduce harm, to combat fascism. But keeping all of that in mind, Bad Empanada is still impeaching my character in such a way as to throw out all of said research, specifically the research targeting him for being fascist. The research that I do is also done by my friends, including Harmony Corrupted, posing for the cover of one of my book volumes, specifically Volume 3, Praxis Part 1, Sex Positivity and Sex Coercion. And then I also give several snippets from where they appear in a specific write-up that I do, a write-up that has a portion that addresses Bad Empanada's bad faith behavior. So again, this is the academic material that Bad Empanada is dismissing out of hand. A note about abjection and reversing it during rape play, re Little-Gothic BDSM. Capital cheapens nature, including sex work, to abject extremes, i.e. the elite suck the lion's share through a straw and reduce the dregs to lifeless garbage it spits into our mouths like baby birds, moving money through nature. That's what capital does, i.e. as cheaply as possible, according to Patel and Moore's A History of the World in 7 Cheap Things, in which I argue requires abjection. Our focus here is on paid labor under Cartesian thought, an essay built around my critique of Watson and the STEM fields queer and whorephobias. Silence then is death, and to live is to speak, and to speak demands exposure, thus danger when exposing ourselves to harm mid-censorship, i.e. as safely as we can behind cryptonymic buffers. To critique rape means actually discussing it, i.e. in ways that draw attention to confront what's wrong when in Rome. Meaning where violence occurs and where sex workers reverse abjection on the aegis, self-defending through trauma as visually blunt force, tied to and swept up in our legit, illegit, virgin whore bodies, bouncing it back, backing it up. Artist Harmony Corrupted, cited with Harmony's help, addressing Volume 3's grand emptiness and ambitions through a good friend. We do so with aegis-like things, e.g. Harmony's ass performing rape, Avenger style in so many ways, a forbidden act of showing and looking at policed property that, when viewed, incite rebellion through various inclinations that evoke reckoning. For status quo viewers, though, such provocations and their demands cannot be tolerated, i.e. these viewers care little for permission or consent, seeing bare transgressive bodies as automatically profligate, a notable invitation for trouble, one that asks for rape as a historical material proposition. In keeping with capital, pimps, and profit, said arrangement vocalizes through puritanical dissent, what was she wearing, and covet thy neighbor's wife, etc. The reaction, specifically Darvo concerning nudity testimony to reactive abuse, gives the SWERF TERF away as fascist once scratched. I was attacked by a sex pest, a whore, a criminal, e.g. Bad Empanada clutching his pearls and calling me stalker, and my friends useless eaters below, i.e. concerning the entirety of our testimony, what we're testifying to, abuse, using what we got, re my book series that Harmony poses for, one of my cover models. Both of us speaking out together, but according to bad actors like Bad Empanada, we can only be pests, vermin, i.e. for him, the universal victim, to out and exterminate, incel style, a modern-day witch hunt carrying out the usual Protestant ethic, furthering abjection. Exhibit -1, top model and artist Harmony Corrupted and Persephone Vanderward, bottom source tweets, left, middle, and right, cited, raising awareness, Bad Empanada will accuse me of rape, call my friends and I useless eaters, only to have me block him. Suddenly, I'm a stalker and he did nothing wrong. What's more, others will defend him too, in bad and/or blind faith. This will happen no matter our evidence, i.e., we whores and similar degenerate folk can't speak for ourselves, are merely things to ratio and excoriate, thus repress, rape, and exterminate with impunity. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. Medusa is the oldest monster in Western canon, a whore, rape victim. In turn, whores, meaning sex workers, unpaid labor, delegitimate, criminalized work, commonly paid under the table, are the oldest kinds of workers, therefore carry the oldest labor struggles in small, echoes of the Gorgon trapped between pieces of dead language, but also the Amazons tokenized into cops from ancient Athens into Pax Americana, i.e. as part of nature, which capital the state currently pimp as monstrous feminine, under Cartesian dualism, therefore abjection, re. nature is food. They siphon this power from Karen's sex work, the victim suitably castrated through abjection, i.e. when trying to voice our concerns, framed as planetary homewreckers under capitalist realism. To ask for capitalism to pay for care is to call for an end to capitalism. Speedrun that shit, i.e. with your eyes and minds open, your play, rape, or otherwise conducive to universal liberation through intersectional solidarity, consciousness, and tactical unity, a pedagogy of the oppressed, versus the so-called hamster wheel approach, a prexly inert take on puzzle solving, typical of white straight guys who keep their games apolitical. That is the kind of work that I do, that Bad Empanada is dismissing, and on my blog in particular, my blog has disclaimers talking about how it is used for educational purposes. It is used to educate people about fascism through sex education with a socio-material critique. So there are disclaimers, and even then, the so-called nudity is still, at the end of the day, censored and used in an educational context to prevent harm. In legal terminology, it passes the Miller test. The Miller test requiring something only be educational, even if it is discussing potentially prurient material. So, all that being said, this is what I am responding to in regards to the Kavernacle, trash discourse, but also Bad Empanada. And I realized that the way that Trash handled it was messier than I would have liked. There are things that they say in regards to the argument that they had overall, which I believe was actually solid, but they wrongly applied it to the Kavernacle in this case. There are things I could say about the Kavernacle, but accusing them of being part of the alt-right pipeline, having a colonizer accent, radicalizing young white men into fascism, and making Palestine content just for money doesn't really help said case. It backfired in a way that I think was entirely avoidable. If Trash said something along the lines of, the Kavernacle is mildly bigoted because the theater kids' joke, regardless if it's a joke or not, is still bigoted through a game of telephone, a double standard that the Kavernacle applies to Trash, but not themselves. So the Kavernacle is apparently given carte blanche as far as saying slurs, but if Trash does something wrong, regardless of why they did it, which is why I appeal for radical empathy. If trans people have their backs against the wall and are facing active political violence through genocide at a particular stage of its development and employment, then it behooves others with relative privilege to understand why that person might be lashing out, regardless of their intent. That's all that I'll say about that, and just something to conclude the video on. I have criticisms of the Kavernacle that are relatively small, and I have criticisms of Trash discourse that hopefully my apology has addressed, and I would, again, implore the Kavernacle to not be fooled by Bad Empanada and what they're saying. I have plenty of evidence, the same evidence that Trash cited in their video, and that the Kavernacle themselves mentioned, so I know that they know that it exists, and all they would have to do is open it and look at the opening page or so, where I have multiple instances of evidence just like this that they could very obviously see is fascist. So even if Trash is completely wrong by comparing the Kavernacle to Bad Empanada, the Kavernacle knows that Bad Empanada is fascist. There's no way that they couldn't at this point. And we need the Kavernacle's help. Despite the fact that I agree with the thesis argument that Trash has, I don't think it should be applied to the Kavernacle, hence why I'm apologizing here. I want the Kavernacle to understand that we are not enemies and that we need the Kavernacle's help to combat fascists like Bad Empanada acting in bad faith. So please, the Kavernacle, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. And I don't mean that literally in the sense that the Kavernacle is the only person who can help us, but I do think that they are someone who can help us by looking past Trash Discourse's rude response, the scratch someone and see if a fascist bleeds approach, which there are different ways that you can do that, and I don't think that they handled that well. Forgive my friend and their poor manners, and please understand that queer people are going through genocide in America as well as in Palestine and all around the world. And if you could speak out regarding Bad Empanada and their bad faith actions, we would appreciate it, because Bad Empanada is ultimately someone who is Zionist because they're punching down against anti-Zionists. And you, being a anti-Zionist like us, have the power to expose them. And it would mean a lot to even go over just some of the basic examples that I've given here. Thank you for your time, and until next time, to the Kavernacle and to my other audience members, thank you for watching, and stay safe out there.